All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be touching on the top plays for this main slate. Now, I will say this slate is seemingly going to be much more straightforward than last week's slate. Now, I mentioned last week's slate was a more difficult slate. No, it wasn't. We still were able to cash, continuing the success that we have had thus far this season. Hopefully, you guys have been jumping on that. It's one of the weirdest things, like the views on the DFS videos as the season progressed typically falls off more and more and whatnot. That's why I haven't been able to come out with the coverage as much, but the success has continued. And really, man, this season has went by far way better than I personally would have thought. And I bet could almost guarantee you guys as well. But looking at this week, guys, I am saying it seems like a straightforward week. I don't know if that means it's going to be a good week, or if, I mean, obviously we need the plays to come through, but all in all, we have some very safe, cheap plays on paper. And so it's going to make the lineup process much more straightforward. So at the quarterback spot, that to me is kind of the difficult part, if you will, because to me, either we were paying up at quarterback going with Jalen Hurts against Arizona, which he is certainly in a smash spot. You know, if we're paying up for him, we're trying to get at least 30 fantasy points out of him. Other than that, maybe you go Brock Purdy against Washington. I am okay with that. I think he's in a great spot. Kyler Murray, if he plays against Philly, I like that spot as well. Derek Carr against Tampa Bay is certainly going to be appealing as well. But to me, we got the news that Jarrett Stidham is going to be starting, and I know this is ugly for a lot of people, but we saw in this exact same situation last year that he did well. Jarrett Stidham is a good rusher, okay? So if we can, honestly, we should get somewhat of similar production out of Stidham that we got out of Wilson. And I know the NFL media is making a big case out of Russell Wilson unjustifiably getting benched, as he was. At the same time, I do think we're going to get similar production out of Stidham that we got out of Wilson. What Wilson was doing was very repeatable for a similar quarterback like Stidham. So I'm hoping that we get around 10 rushing attempts. Like these games is kind of what I'm saying right here. This is what we're trying to get out of Stidham, okay? Nothing magical. We're trying to get 10 rushing attempts, maybe a rushing touchdown, and then literally 150 pass. That's what we're hoping for. And at this price tag for Stidham, that is certainly going to be enough. Again, if you guys want to play it safe and pay up for Jalen Hurts, I get jumping into the running back spot. So the running back spot is a little bit more difficult. I will say, like, if you want to pay up for Christian McCaffrey, I would not fault you for that. On PrizePicks, the data's favorite is under for 24, but it's at 24 for fantasy score. So obviously that's extremely high. I would say that's probably what we're expecting is 24 fantasy points out of him, 20 plus fantasy points out of him. It is very difficult to pass up on that, but at the same time, again, I feel like Kyren Williams is the starting point given his pricing because he is still not priced correctly. I've been saying this for like 2 straight weeks now. He was someone that I had been telling you guys to play this whole season, so I'm going to continue to play that as well. Like, given his workload and how really well he's looked as well, and the production has matched it, like, to me, we're just going to continue to play him. The Rams are 6-point favorites in that game. The Giants are a bad defense. I like that. And then from there, it does become more. Well, let's start with the easy one, I guess. Zamir White, we're simply just playing, guys. Given the matchup with the Colts, like, he is in the smash spot. He should be able to smash, dominate against Kansas City. That was a good rush defense. And then against the Chargers, another similar matchup to the Colts. He was able to take advantage of that matchup. A little bit of touchdown dependent. We don't typically expect him to get a lot of usage in the passing game, but all in all, it's nice to see that was there. He was someone that looked good in the preseason. So all in all, I think we're just banking on him to have a good game. And then from there, it does get more difficult. Like, to me, I'd be fine ending up on Jonathan Taylor, probably going to get around 80% of the work. Was not used in the passing game at all last week, which was a little bit concerning. We saw Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson actually get some work. I'm not expecting that in this game. A little bit of a better matchup, I would say, than the last game. And obviously his last game was his first game back from the injury. We'll see. All in all, I don't know if I exactly want to pay up for him. You got Travis Etienne really in the smash spot. He's probably going to get a lot of work in this game as well, given the fact that Trevor Lawrence is out. I just don't know if I want to go there. Just because he has not been playing well recently. To me, I'd rather pay down, and we could get someone like Austin Eckler in a smash spot. And the thing with Austin Eckler is he has looked better, and we're getting Austin Eckler at 6.7, and I know this offense hasn't been great, but really, Denver kind of is sending the wrong message, I think, by benching Wilson. We'll see. To me, that's a bad look. All in all, though, we just saw Austin Eckler have a massive game against Denver. Look good against Denver. Look good against Buffalo for what's worth as well. Is getting used in the receiving game. That's going to continue. I'm fine ending up on Austin Eckler as well. At that price tag, I'm perfectly fine with it. And then from there, Swift, Bijan Robinson, they're in fine spots. Joe Mixon's still in a good spot. If the Raiders kind of expose the Chiefs, maybe Joe Mixon is in for a pretty good game in that game. Zeke is still going to get a lot of work in this game. Okay, they're projected to lose by 14 points. However, I don't love that. I think we're going to see similar production as to what we got out of him in that game against the Chiefs. And then from there, Jaylen Warren and also Najee Harris, I do think are kind of safe, cheap plays if you want to end up on them. Jumping into receiver now. Receiver is a little bit more difficult as well. Obviously, if you want to pay up for Tyreek Hill, you can certainly do so. Really, all the pay-ups are fine. I'm definitely okay with anyone between Puka and Tyreek Hill. The question is, which one do we want to play? Do we want to play Cooper Kupp in a great matchup, or do we want to play Puka Nacua in a great matchup? Both of them are going to get targeted heavily. I'm actually perfectly fine with either of them. The question is, do we need to pay up for them? I don't know. You got Deebo Samuel in a very good spot going against Washington. He has been a very solid and safe, consistent producer. I'm perfectly fine playing him at that price peg. You got Nico Collins in a very good spot going against the Tennessee Titans. He's going to have CJ Stroud back, which is going to benefit him as well. He just had an okay game against one of the best pass defenses, got shut down against the Jets. We are seeing his price at a very interesting price tag, though, given the fact that he was coming in off injury, coming in off of 2 bad games. So I don't love that price, and I thought when the pricing came out this week that he'd be someone we'd be loading up on. Tough to get there now, but still wouldn't be surprising if he has a good game. It does feel like if you guys are someone that does more than one build, just put Deebo Samuel in one, put Brandon Ayuk in the other. Know that you're probably going to get at least 20 fantasy points from one of those two. From there, Chris Olave is the play that I want to get to, though, as the second receiver into my builds, simply due to his pricing and also the matchup. Like, he is going to get targeted heavily and often in this game. Now, the one concerning point is that the last time they played Tampa Bay, that was his worst game of the year. That is my only concern. Other than that, though, he should get targeted heavily in this game. That should mean good things for him. I can get there. If you guys wanted to end up on Ayuk instead, I get it. If you guys want to get to Nico Collins instead, I get it. Then I do really like Adam Thielen this week going against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. Bryce Young really had his best game of the season last year against the Green Bay Packers, who have been a terrible pass defense over the last few weeks. Who also has been a terrible defense over the past few weeks? The Jacksonville Jaguars. I think we could expect similar production out of Adam Thielen that we got last week. 8 targets, 6 receptions, 94 yards. I think we could see that again. The issue is, how much of a ceiling does he have? Does he have that ceiling that we saw at the start of the season? Probably not. We're seeing that tail off. All in all, though, I still think he is going to be a very solid play for us this week. A very safe play. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson are both going to be interesting plays. This is where I struggled to get to Adam Thielen because I think I'd be perfectly fine just ending up on Deontay Johnson instead. My concern is that Pittsburgh is really just going to try to run the clock out with both Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. That's my concern. All in all, though, I think I want to be ending up on Deontay Johnson as well. I will say if Jamar Chase is out, you're going to be looking at Tyler Boyd to be a super safe play. Greg Dortch is someone that I'm definitely interested in, given this matchup with the Eagles. They're one of the worst pass defenses in the league. Greg Dortch should get targeted a lot in this game, given that Marquise Brown is still out. That's what you would assume. Doesn't exactly mean that's going to happen. All in all, the price tag is too good to pass up on for a guy that probably should get around 7 targets in this game. Like, I'm perfectly fine with that. Great matchup. Price feels a little bit too cheap. You could go with Jahan Dotson there instead. For me, for now, I have been going Greg Dortch, and I'm fine with it. So you guys can see we're going to have a lot of salary left over. That, again, is that's the tough part. Like, defensively, I don't really care who I end up on. Tight end wise, if you wanted to spend up for Travis Kelce, obviously you'd have to shift your lineup around a little bit. You could do that. Trey McBride's also in a good spot, but I don't really see the point of doing that. You got Cole Kmet in a pretty good matchup going against Atlanta. I'm perfectly happy to get there with him as a play. And then you have 3.5 left over still. You could literally play whoever you want. Rams defense, if you want to roll with them, by all means, you could do that. Let's see, who else do we got? Bears defense going against Atlanta, who's looked terrible. You could do that as well. So, like, that's the issue, is that we have so much to pay up for. Like, other tight ends I like that I couldn't even get to. Gerald Everett going against Denver, he seems like a super safe play. Okay, so, like, definitely could play Gerald Everett there, and then we could spend up elsewhere because we are still going to have a lot of salary left over. If you want to play the Niners against Washington, you could. Don't hate that. Texans against Tennessee, I'm okay with as well. Raiders against Indy, a little bit prone to turnovers. You could do that. This would be weird, but I actually think we could get to the Chargers and Broncos. And guys, this is why I typically just punt. Like, it typically doesn't matter. Maybe we just go Patriots, and then we have a lot of salary left over. Again, can really pay it wherever you want. Go up from Greg Dortch to AJ Brown. All in all, that works out pretty well, right? Could easily afford to pay up for, let's say, CMC instead if you chose to do that. I'm fine with that. But all in all, I think that this is going to be kind of the lineup path that we want to run out there. No need to do 2 tight ends. So we end up with 6.6 left over, which is kind of a weird price tag because then I don't want to play in those receivers that were there. So then you're probably just upgrading from Adam Thielen to go 7.5. But all in all, guys, there's one other play that I forgot to mention receiver-wise. with Cortland Sutton out, Brennan Johnson's the minimum price. He's probably going to play 70% of the snaps. Had a big game in the last game, 5 targets in that game. Simply too cheap. He kind of fits the mold of a little bit of Deontay Johnson slightly. Then you have 9.2 left over. Let's say you wanted to fit Tyreek Hill. You could do that as well. I could go Juwan Johnson there. That gets a good matchup. Again, it's an easy week, but also a strange kind of roster construction week. It's really up to you guys which players you are prioritizing. If you didn't want to pay up at receiver, you could pay up at quarterback and replace Stidham. I'm perfectly fine with it. But that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully we continue to have a good NFL season. A little bit risky, I would say, but also a straightforward week that we have. Thank you guys for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.